Pos Dad slept with wife and got her pregnant because of a deal that they made without my knowledge many years ago. I did my previous update, caught them together in my house on my profile. TLDR, my dad and wife had slept together, so my dad got rid of his widow's fire, while my wife got a job at my late grandfather's business. We had a confrontation. We decided to do a DNA test, and we are now trying to figure out if my kids are mine, my dad's, or a stranger's. I went to my female neighbor's house. An hour later or so, my wife kept calling me. She called me three times, but I ignored her. On her fourth call, my neighbor told me to pick the phone up, so I answered her. She stopped crying, but she was still so distressed from her voice. She asked how I was doing and really wanted me to come back, but I said I can't, so she asked if she'd talk over the phone. I said yes, and then she said that she indeed was together with my dad when I was in the business trip. She said that one day he invited her over, so she went to his place. At the time, my wife was unemployed and looking for jobs. She was already stressed from not having any income and was lonely because of me being away from home frequently for long periods, and my dad lost his wife at the time, which made him lonely too. My grandfather had his own business and gave it to my dad in his last years. He passed away too. During that time, my dad was running the business. He thought that he'd make a deal with my wife. The deal was that my dad will give my wife a position at his business in exchange for sex to fulfill his widow's fire. That's how everything happened. I really was speechless when she told me these things. I didn't know how to react, but I thanked her for telling her side of the story and said that I'll get back to her later. I hung up. We recorded the whole telephone call. My neighbor said that I should send a message to my dad confirming my wife's side of the story. That's what I did, and asked my dad if the things that my wife were true. He said yes. I took a screenshot of our text exchange. Now that the truth has come out, I feel better, but it has raised more questions like why sleep with my dad just to get a job? Why sleep with my wife instead of an escort to get rid of your loneliness? None of their reasons excuse their evil act of betrayal and infidelity towards me. Once my dad confirmed everything, my neighbor and I went to my house and told my dad to come over. We had the talk finally. They said that this happened on a weekend, and they spent the whole weekend together constantly having S*X without any protection, and it just on that weekend. After that, they never had an intimate connection. I asked my wife if she slept with anyone else, and she said no. Regarding our kids, I requested my dad to order 3 DNA tests for each of us to confirm any suspected paternity. My kids don't have to take a DNA test because they already did the ancestry test to learn more about our genealogy a few years ago. We didn't, but now that we are in this situation, we're going to do it too. However, my wife was annoyed that I was requesting a DNA test. She got so disappointed and told me that I don't trust her and that I insinuated that those children aren't mine. When my wife told me to not request a DNA test, my neighbor said, "You have to do the DNA test. And of course, he doesn't trust you anymore, and if you have nothing to hide, why are you so against the DNA test?" My wife responded, "Don't poke your nose into this. This is between me and my husband." My neighbor then said to my wife, "Unlike you, I don't poke my nose into other men's dicks, let alone my father-in-law's dick." My wife couldn't say anything to that. She reluctantly agreed to take the DNA test. My dad ordered the tests in front of all of us. My dad once again told me how remorseful he was. He kept apologizing over and over again. My wife was the same. They started crying again, and I got pissed again. I told them that you guys are POS and that I never expected this from both of you. I told my dad that he could have just slept with any other woman out there, but selfishly decided to sleep with my wife. I also told my wife that she's so cheap that she literally sold her body for sex just to get a job in my dad's business in the expense of destroying our family. I asked her if my dad, job, and our family was worth it. She couldn't give an answer. She was guilty, and she told me that she should have been more patient in getting a job she liked. But she then confessed to me that she voluntarily left his business because of the guilt of what she did in order to get the job. I asked my dad why he confessed now, and asked my wife why she kept this a secret. My dad told me that he just wanted to clear his conscience of this heavy guilt, and that he was having a hard time living his life with this big of a vile secret. My wife told me that she didn't want to ruin our relationship, and that she feared that she'd lose me. I said to my wife that had she told me immediately at the time, then our relationship could have been saved. But after a lifetime of our entire marriage built on lies, she brought this upon herself, and that her fear is now coming true. As for my dad, I told him that he is such a POS, and that he will always carry this guilt because now he's going to live with the guilt of breaking our family for the rest of his life. I told both of them that at the end, they are the losers and that they will never get our family back. I told them that it was so clear how they were dying to be in each other's pants, and finally they can have each other. My neighbor said to them that, "You guys deserve each other and fuck yourselves to rot in hell. You guys are the worst monsters that I've ever seen." If you have read my comment, you'd know how my wife sent my dad an email saying, "It's all over." I told them both loudly and clearly that it wasn't over at the time. It's all over now. At this point, my dad dad couldn't bear to look at me anymore, so he just left our house, and my wife had a full-blown breakdown. She was hitting herself, curling in the floor, screaming while I just looked at her with contempt and disdain. I quietly said to myself that she deserved all of this, and this is only the beginning of her pain and the destruction she caused. I just looked at her. Once her breakdown was over, I just asked her to leave, but she begged to stay, which I said that she can't stay anymore and that she has to leave for a few days. After an hour of begging, she just said *CK it and left. I don't know where she went, but I am happy and feel relieved. I don't care to know where she is. I don't want to think about her nor my dad anymore. In midst of this ugly confrontation, my neighbor recorded everything. After my wife left, my neighbor sent me the recording and said how proud she was of me for standing up for myself and keeping my coolness, and that I deserve every happiness in the world, and that I am now free to get the life I always deserved away from these POS. We hugged and I cried again. I am so happy that I have the best neighbor in the world, and I wish that my wife was like her instead of being a monster. So the confrontation happened, and we are now waiting for our DNA test kit. We will do the test and send it off. We'll wait a couple of weeks for the results to come, and let's see what we're gonna come across. I hope a bag of a whole other lies isn't opened, but you never know. Gotta be prepared for the worst. Now the question is, are those kids mine, my father's, or someone else's?